Okay, welcome everyone. Good afternoon or good morning. I'm Alia. I'm from Awana Digital, and this is the second CoMapeo introductory webinar that we're giving as part of a series of a few. And we've more coming up in the next few weeks in English, some with French, Swahili, and Bahasa translation, as well as one in Portuguese for users in Brazil. So please, if you find this useful, send the information along to others. We're really thrilled that you could join us today and that so many people have joined. And we look forward to telling you a little bit about the tool CoMapeo and hopefully answering some questions you might have about why and how to use it. There are 4 members of our team on the call today. And there's Emily, the founder and executive director of Awana Digital, and she'll be joining me as a presenter. And Maria, who supports many of our partners in Africa, and Tomas, who supports partners in Peru, will be our tech support and help with answering questions. I've been with Awana Digital for nearly 10 years now, and my role is to support our team working with partners and communities. I'm British, and today I'm talking to you from Catalonia, and we would love to get a sense of who else is in this virtual space with us today. So we invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat with your name, your community or organization, and also the territory or country that you're joining us from. I recognize some of the names, but most people I don't know, and that's really exciting for us to be meeting new people. So I'm going to start with a little bit about Awana Digital. Since 2008, we've been working with local community partners around the world to support them to use technology to defend their rights and to protect critical ecosystems. You might have known us as Digital Democracy. We changed our name 2 years ago to Awana Digital to better reflect our values and mission. Awana is a Quechua word that means to weave, and we see our role as partly supporting people to weave technology into their work as land defenders. Awana Digital is quite a small organization. We're about 18 people. Most of the team is in North and South America, and there are 3 of us here in Europe, where I am. We have a robust tech development team that does all the coding and design work to build CoMapeo, and we have a community and partner-facing team which supports users of the tool, gathers feedback for our co-design process, and creates the materials and guides to make CoMapeo more widely accessible. And now I'll pass you over to Emily to tell you a little bit about our plan for today.
Thank you, Alia. Welcome, everybody. So glad you're here. I'm calling in from where I live in the beautiful Driftless region of Wisconsin on traditional lands of the Ho-Chunk peoples. And today we really intended this as an introductory session. Some of you may have used Mapeo or CoMapeo, and if so, please feel free to drop that in the comments. But we wanted to try to answer the basic questions people might have. So, what is CoMapeo? Why did we create it? And why might people want to use it? Who is it for? How can it be used, including key features? And then we're going to go over some case studies and some of the places where it's currently being used. But we should note it can be used anywhere, and we always love hearing new places that we don't know about. We're going to spend about half an hour on the presentation and save the rest of the webinar for Q&A. And we really invite you to be interactive throughout the presentation. So first, thanks for those of you who are already doing this, for writing your name and either organization and or the community that you represent and where you're calling in from. Second, we invite you to use the chat to converse with each other, to ask, to talk to each other, to make comments. And then there's a Q&A feature on webinars, just I believe to the right of the chat, where you can actually post questions that you want to have answered in the Q&A. You can also upvote the questions that others raise, if that's something you also want to know more about. And we've enabled it so that people can answer each other's questions. At the end of the presentation, when we get into the question and answer session, we'll be asking those of you who want to ask your question out loud. You can use the raise hand feature so we can unmute you, so you can bring your voice into the conversation. And we will try to, even if we've answered some of the questions via text, we'll try to answer what we can out loud as well for folks who are only listening or watching the video later. So what is CoMapeo? The basic question: CoMapeo is a platform that Awana Digital has been stewarding for over a decade. It's both a mobile and a desktop tool for collaborative mapping and place-based monitoring. We co-designed it with Indigenous communities who are working to protect their lands and rights, but it can be used for many others, and it's really for any community that wants to gather and manage place-based data. It's a free and open source tool. It's free to use, and it is available. CoMapeo desktop is available for Mac, Windows, and Linux, while the mobile application is currently only available for Android phones, but we're planning to make it available for iOS later this year. I'm going to pass it back to Alia to go into the next question.
A couple of decades ago, some of our team was working alongside Indigenous communities in the Western Amazon, supporting territory mapping and monitoring initiatives. And this work, as many of you will know, was important because mapping ancestral territory use and the threats to it can provide critical evidence that communities can use to defend their rights and to defend their lands. However, the mapping technologies which were around at the time fell short on multiple fronts, and many of them created dependencies within communities. For example, most of the tech at the time required internet connectivity. This was long before the days of Starlink, and many communities had to travel far and long to reach places with a connection. The tech usually also relied on centralized databases, not owned or even managed by the communities, and control over knowledge or given up to others, either external experts or large companies where the data was hosted. The technology and the software programs were also often hard to learn. They weren't in the right languages for communities, and they often didn't have very intuitive interfaces. They might have been expensive to maintain access to in the long run. So skip forward a few years, and in 2015, the Waorani people of Ecuador asked Awana Digital to support a new territory map initiative, which they wanted to manage themselves, to create a map of all the life, history, and culture within their lands. After trying out existing mapping and GIS software with them, we decided to co-develop a new tool which would enable them to map their lands and manage the data themselves in their community without needing internet access, and really better meet all of their needs. And this is how Mapeo, which became CoMapeo, was born. Over the following 4 years, the Waorani team created maps of 22 communities, documenting sacred and historical sites, medicinal plants and hunting camps, and georeferencing and naming hundreds of rivers and streams that run through their territory. And I was fortunate enough to start my work with Awana Digital just when this was getting going, and I supported much of the Waorani mapping work. And with Mapeo, they were able to demonstrate that the empty space on the state maps was in reality full of life, and it was critical to their and other beings' survival. It was territory lived in and loved by the Waorani for generations.
I'm so sorry. I think Alia was cutting out a little bit, so I'm just going to repeat a little bit of what she was sharing for those who didn't catch it. But the Waorani used the maps that they created to win a legal case that protected 200,000 hectares of the Amazon forest, their traditional homelands from oil drilling. And from there, we've gone on to work with many of their neighboring communities, and further refine Mapeo, which last year we launched as an improved and updated tool, CoMapeo. Okay, so I'm gonna speak for a little bit, and hopefully Alia's internet will work okay moving forward. But the next question is, who is it for? So really, CoMapeo is for any community of people who are looking for an easy-to-use tool that will enable them to gather, manage, and use place-based information that can include photos and videos while protecting their data. We have many kind of known current users include, of course, Indigenous communities and other groups doing community-led conservation, many different types of environmental defenders. It can be ones that are both, ones that are doing advocacy on a big level, or just who are trying to protect their own local area and keep information internal so they can make better decisions. It's really designed to help support traditional knowledge keepers share information with younger generations. Farmers and agroecologists, we're seeing new use cases for those. Community organizers, foragers, that's one of the use cases I have here in Wisconsin, where we have a lot of mushrooms. It's great for documenting where those are. And then human rights activists. And many more cases that we probably don't even know about. So again, we always love hearing new ways it can or is being used. And then finally, we've mentioned co-design a couple times. That's a really core ethos for us that from the get-go, we were co-designing the tool with local communities, including the Morani. And we now currently have co-design partners in the Amazon rainforest, in East Africa, and in Indonesia and some Pacific islands. So there's many reasons why communities might want to use it. Ali already mentioned some of these. They might want to be documenting threats. Many are mapping ancestral territory for land claims. This is often for what Indigenous groups are using it for. Collecting biodiversity data. This is actually a photo from Kenya, where our Okiek partners are collecting biodiversity data. Also for fostering intergenerational knowledge sharing, so elders and young people can use the tool to help transfer that knowledge and make sure that it's finally that's safeguarded, both for safeguarding culture and knowledge as well as territories for future generations. We'll share some more examples later on. But another question we often get is, why should you use CoMapeo over the other tools? First of all, I want to say, our mission as an organization is not to promote a particular tool. We really co-developed this just based on needs and gaps in other tools. So there are many reasons why different tools are good for different reasons. And we don't universally say that this is the tool that everybody should use. But some of the reasons some people choose to use CoMapeo is because it is offline first, meaning it works completely offline, even when you don't have internet or cell phone, and all the functions work in remote areas. Second, we very much designed to be intuitive and easy to use, so that newcomers, people who don't have a lot of experience in using technology, can still be really involved in mapping and monitoring programs. Third, it was designed to be very secure and protect data for local communities. Next, it's customizable, and Alia will share more of that when we get into the features. It respects data sovereignty, and particularly Indigenous data sovereignty. And then finally, it's free and open source. I'm going to pass back to Alia to share some of the features.
Thank you. So when you open up CoMapeo, you get a map screen, and CoMapeo uses your phone's GPS to show you your position on the map. The GPS isn't usually attached to the phone or Wi-Fi signal, so this should work even if you don't have reception. You can then capture your position and save your location, tagging it with a category, such as the ones here in the middle screen, for example, a community. And then you can add further details about the observation, such as photos and notes. You can add questions you can answer questions about the point taken, such as what is the community's name or how many people live here. And then both the background map and the list of icons that you see can be completely customized to your needs. Or you can stick with the default options that come with Mapeo or CoMapeo if you prefer. So here, for example, you can see some community monitors in the Solomon Islands, and they're using CoMapeo to take an observation with a photograph here as part of biodiversity monitoring work that they're doing. And in addition to photos and notes, you can also add audio clips up to a maximum of 5 minutes to your observation. And all of that will get bundled up with the point and the photos and the notes. These could be soundscapes, oral testimonies, oral histories, testimonies of human rights abuses, or you could simply record audio instead of taking notes if it's safer to do so, or if writing isn't an option. You can also collect tracks. So your GPS will work in the background as you walk along or travel along. And in this way, you can add
I'm going to come in. As Ollie was saying, with the tracks feature, you can add footpaths. Ollie, I'm jumping in because I think your audio is cutting out. So you can add footpaths or boundaries to your maps. And you can also work with the team.
Teamwork and collaboration. And CoMapeo allows you to set roles of participants and
Okay, so you can also work with the team, and CoMapeo allows you to add the roles of coordinator and participant with different permissions within a named project. And this is part of how the app is designed to keep data safe, because only members who are a trusted member of a project can see the data collected within it, and that's protected through, through encryption. We already shared, I shared this briefly, but specifically here in Kenya, Mount Elgon, these women monitors from the Ogiek team are using the audio recording feature to record birdsong, which they then work with village elders to help identify which birds are present when they're doing their biodiversity monitoring. Ollie, you seem to be back, so I'm gonna pass it back to you for the next one. And
yeah, I'm very sorry to everyone. My connection has not been this bad. Okay, so to exchange your data with other team members whilst remaining offline, what you do is set up a temporary local network, like a hotspot on your phone without internet, or you can use a little router. And if you'd like to exchange data online, this is also now possible. We do support online functionality, and I'll tell you a bit about that in a moment. Your phone can also manage different CoMapeo projects at the same time. For example, you could have one about your community's mapping work and another one about the monitoring risks. And also a community could have the projects of different communities which they oversee, all available on their devices without the data getting mixed up. CoMapeo, as we've said, is very customizable. You can have the categories and the questions appear in your own language. You can choose your own icons, and also set up your own custom offline map to use whilst out collecting data. Now, CoMapeo has a sister tool, which Emily mentioned, CoMapeo Desktop. You can use the mobile CoMapeo without a computer if you wish, but we found that many teams prefer a computer for more easily editing, viewing, and managing their data, especially if you want to show it to others. So the desktop version works just like the mobile, but you can't create new data on the desktop. You can just view it and edit the data collected on CoMapeo mobile. And from both the mobile and desktop versions, you can export your data to a GeoJSON file, which allows you to use it in other GIS programs such as QGIS or ArcGIS and create maps in our product. So here you can see one of the Warani mapping team members checking their collected data with an elder using CoMapeo Desktop. And this next image shows one of the mapping validation meetings that the Ogiek in Kenya had. So they projected desktop onto a screen that everyone can see through all of the data together. So people often ask, if CoMapeo isn't connected to the internet or to a server, where is the data stored? The data is all stored locally on people's phones and computers that are part of the project in what is called a peer-to-peer decentralized database. So all of the data is exchanged with that of others on a project, and they're considered your peers. And the database is copied onto all the devices. So when you exchange, everybody gets a copy of all of the data within a project. As I said, the exchange of data can work without the internet using a router or a phone hotspot. But you can also now use this online functionality called the remote archive. So for some, keeping data totally offline is still really important.
Sorry, Ellie cut off again. So the exchange of data can work without internet, where communities use routers or a phone to create a local offline Wi-Fi network that allows the data to be shared between project members. Okay, so the next question is where is CoMapeo being used? And as I said, we wanted to share just a few examples of places where it's been used in case studies. So first of all, in Brazil, we're working with an amazing organization called Univaja, which is a coalition of Indigenous guardians who are really working to defend the very large Javari River Valley, which is over 8.5 million hectares of Amazon rainforest in western Brazil. Their land is threatened by logging, gold mining, illegal fishing, and other land invasions. So since 2021, we've been supporting them first using Mapeo and now CoMapeo. They have a very robust monitoring system, which includes using boats to travel down the multiple rivers. And today they have over 100 rangers who are actively using CoMapeo to monitor threats. And they're using the remote sync, the remote archive function, which Alia was just describing, to sync data from across the far areas of their territory to their coordinator team. Moving east to sub-Saharan Africa, we've been working with multiple partners, including a Maasai organization called Final Governance. They're a legal group who's been supporting Maasai communities across northern Tanzania who've been facing many threats from the government, including threats of eviction. And they first asked us to support them in using Mapeo to map the Ngorongoro conservation area to show their relationship with the land. And they later have gone on to use Mapeo, now CoMapeo, to also document human rights threats and evictions, and sharing the data both with government and in court cases, and then finally with the UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And then moving further east in time zones to the Solomon Islands, we've been really fortunate to work with amazing local groups, the Mai Masani Greenbelt and the Climate Institute, as well as Neotero and Conservation Metrics, to support monitoring efforts to protect the last remaining intact forests in the Sky Islands region. So they have been working using Mapeo and CoMapeo along with satellite alerts to report evidence of illegal logging to the Ministry of Environment, who've taken action against logging companies who have violated their concessions. And given the success of this work, the Islands Knowledge Institute is now working to spread this monitoring system across the entire islands. So this about wraps up our presentation part. The final question you might have is where you can download it. You can go to comapeo.app to download it, to get information, to get new release notes, to get ongoing information, as well as support materials. And we've also included this QR code if you have an Android phone and want to start using CoMapeo Mobile today on your Android. As I mentioned, we'll also be releasing it on iOS in the future. And you can get in touch with us at support@comapeo.app. These are resources you can get started with CoMapeo, and we have a few different websites. We'll also put them in the chat where you can learn more about CoMapeo, about Awana Digital, and about a platform where we highlight many case studies and resources called Earth Defenders Toolkit. I'm going to stop sharing now and invite all my colleagues to come off video and move to questions. So first of all, anybody who has a question, go ahead. You can feel welcome to go ahead and raise your hand, and then we'll start pulling from the Q&A as well. All right. Maria, could you maybe take over? I'm just taking people off of, but I'm going to go ahead. Okay, Soraya.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for this presentation. These tools seem to be amazing. I just have a couple of questions. First, I just shared for the chat. It's about the options for downloading information from CoMapeo, the app, right, or the desktop version, whatever. I'm from Nest, another impact investing. sorry. Again, I'm from NEST. It's an acceleration program that invests in social and environmental enterprises, and several of them have this issue with mapping hectares conserved. Many of them have enterprises that also protect some areas or have some conservation areas, right? And they have some issues to measure those hectares. So I was seeing that maybe the tracks, that the option that CoMapeo has for monitoring the tracks can help them. These communities that many of them are, for example, in Amazonas, could help them for monitor those conserved hectares they work on. And as I understood, these tracks can be downloaded as GeoJSON, which is pretty compatible with shapefiles or, well, whatever GIS information we can use for. And I want to know if, for example, they could have like a project inside CoMapeo, as you mentioned, with these tracks for measuring their own conserved hectares, for example, each quarter or each annually, I don't know, something like that, like in a fixed time step, so they can monitor through the time how many hectares they have conserved. Am I being enough clear?
Okay. Yeah, Soraya, I think you're clear. I'll try and answer your question, and if I cut out, please, Tomas or Maria, jump in. I think your question is clear. So what the way the tracks function, I think could possibly support your partners as you imagined. People could, walk, or if it's a motorcycle route, travel around the conserved area, taking the track, and then you'll be able to see that in CoMapeo desktop, download it, like you said, as a GeoJSON, and then use it in GIS or QGIS or whatever other program and do analysis there. That currently isn't a lot of functionality within CoMapeo desktop for kind of analyzing and measuring areas, but we are going to be bringing some more of that in over the next few months. And we have sort of other tools that we can interface with, which CoMapeo, can sort of overlap with, which might be able to support it. So it really depends, like what other tools the community can use if it's a community managed project, or if they're just going to be gathering the data and sending it to someone else to analyze. We really are trying to support workflows where the community can be as involved as possible in as much of the process as possible. So that's why we're trying to build more analysis and management functions into CoMapeo desktop. But it is a new tool. We only released the desktop version at Christmas, so we're still building more aspects into it. But I think currently there is one functionality that would work for you, and then maybe over the coming months, the sort of use would increase, the possibilities would increase.
Nice, thank you. It's very nice to know that.
Thank you for your question. We have some more questions. I'm
gonna Elias or Elias, I'll let you speak.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yes, so I'm Elias Kimayo from Sengwer Indigenous community who live in Embobot Forest. And maybe joined on what was asked about conservation area. Most of the time we've been struggling with conservation and land right issues, but we found a soft spot whereby we will be on the same table with government who are trying to evict us and blaming us that we are the one who are destroying Embobot Forest while we are indigenous people. And of course, they are the one who destroyed our forests by allowing other communities by not giving us our land rights. So recently, with partner with CoMapeo, what we did was we looked into angle of conservation, and what we've done. We talked with them and we asked them, why don't we conserve this area? And what we are doing now currently is that we are using other external apps that we can map certain area. For example, recently, whereby the Deputy President of Kenya even created that event, we mapped the area about 100 acres of land, and we plant the trees, and of course the indigenous trees that were in that place before they were affected. And actually, if you analyze that data, you will be able to see and also monitor using Awana Digital app over time. For example, you can write how we programmed it in a way that how many trees were deployed here and how many acres of land were planted, the trees were planted. And we will be able to monitor it with time. For example, if it was last year or the other year, then we will be able to show in 5 years' time. So, and that will actually give us an upper hand to negotiate for our land rights in future as we tackle. We saw that soft spot, and we really thank Awana Digital for coming up with these tools, because we are able to demonstrate over time, and even it's a new technology that our local government has embraced so much. So I think that is what I wanted to inject about interject about what was asked about the acreages of land, because now we are using an external app to show this is the acreage. You move around with your phone and you see then you plant that area, of course, and monitor with time using Awana Digital app. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Elias. You're doing our job for us. It's really great to hear about your use of CoMapeo. We look forward to seeing how it develops. I'm just going to answer a couple of the questions that have come into the chat, and then we'll take another live question. So Cameron, you ask, what are the base maps that the mobile app uses offline? So the format is an SMP format, and we've built a plugin for QGIS so that people can build their base map kind of with the zooms as however they want it within QGIS, and then you can export it using the plugin that we built, and it will export as an SMP format. And that can be, using satellite data or whatever other shape files or imagery that you want. I believe we also have a converter that converts MB tiles to SMP tiles if you're using other software like ArcGIS, and you can export to MB tiles. The pricing model, so CoMapeo is completely free. You can download it for free now off the Google Play Store, and you can download CoMapeo Desktop from our website. We don't have a pricing model for our support. We're trying to make it as independent and to use as possible. So we're trying to provide guides, and there will be hopefully more webinars and videos coming in the future supporting people to use it. We do support some people directly, and sometimes that's through co-funding, or we might have funding, or they might have funding to support that work. But the tool itself is completely free. You also asked about options to share online when connected to Signal. I'm not sure about Signal. Does anyone know about Signal? Do we support that at the moment? There is an option to share individual data points, which was set up with Mapeo. It was set up to share on WhatsApp and email and things like that. I'm not sure about Signal.
I think they're referring to Signal as in mobile signal, internet signal.
Okay. Yes. Then I can answer that. Thank you. Yes, there is an option to share online. So you can set up what's called a remote archive, and then so long as you've been together and set up a project, someone in the community can exchange with this remote archive server online, and then that will get to you. So say you're in the office, that data will get to you, and the remote archive will also serve as a backup. So that is possible. If you've got any further questions on that, please add them in. And I'll answer one more from the chat. Can you elaborate further on where the data is stored? So unless you choose to add the remote archive, the online server, which we oversee, to your project, if you add that, then it's also the data is stored there. If you don't add that, the data is only stored on the devices which are members of a project. So that's basically your phones and your computers. It's a completely decentralized database, so the data is owned and used by the communities and the users who are using it. And maybe we'll take another live question. Go see.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes.
All right. So my name is Kosi. I'm in Botswana. So this is on the South African lower end. So I have a couple of questions. When this data is there, as the community, can we see who uses our data? Like in terms of which can you track the usage of the data? Maybe for example, orchid.doc ID, so that we can track who uses our knowledge. Second, can external parties extract these data sets, our documents, our indigenous knowledge, right? In terms of, can extra parties, maybe universities, they want access to that knowledge? How does that look like in CoMapeo, right? And then how can CoMapeo, so a lot of our indigenous knowledge, for example, in our country, it's in physical copies. Like how can CoMapeo help us around solving this problem? Thank you very much.
So I think I can answer some part of this regarding how can you have visibility on who accesses data. So at a glance, when you create a project in CoMapeo and you start collecting data, only people in that project can see the data. Nobody has access to it, not even us. That data only lives in your devices. And even if it lives in our servers, because you set up a remote archive, we can't even access that data. So if you want to share that data with third parties, external entities like universities, it's something that you kind of have to manage manually, which there are different possibilities. You can, for example, share individual points through like email, WhatsApp, Signal. But you can also, like, if it's a trusted party, you can, for example, add them or invite them to your project so that they can access the data. Right? So in that way, you know who has access to the data of your monitoring project. I think there was another question that I think I missed, so maybe somebody can jump in. I think I forgot there was a
there was a third question. It was about whether CoMapeo can help because lots of the data is, I understood it's not digital. It's all in kind of paper and printed forms already. Currently, that's a really very interesting question. I'm not sure I can immediately answer that question. Can anyone else think of a good answer? We have your email, so we can get back to you if we think of some answers. Because it's really, CoMapeo Mobile is really a data collection app. So its strength is kind of going out into the field and collecting new data. So you could collect new data, using those offline maps. I guess you'd have to get them digitized, which I think the only way I know of is in tools like ArcGIS or QGIS, where you can kind of georeference them semi-automatically, semi-manually, and then you could use those maps as a base map in the background of CoMapeo. So that would be one way of using data that's already been collected, but you'd have to sort of take ideally a very high quality image of the printed or paper map and then manually georeference it, which you do, I think, by kind of selecting a few points, which you can kind of locate on satellite information as well, so that you can sort of line up the image correctly. And then you'd be able to use that as an image map in the background offline. Hopefully that semi-answers your question. There's another question here from
yes,
Anka.
Yes,
Sorry, go ahead, Kosi, if you have any, come back to that.
Okay, no, okay, thank you for that. I think what I also wanted to know was how much data, like if you're saying it's a peer-to-peer database, like how much data in terms of gigabytes, RAMs, what's the storage capability of your software? That's all. Thank you.
I can answer that. I think since it's a peer-to-peer system, it's related to the capacity of your devices. You gotta think that at a glance, if you collect points, those don't occupy as much data as one would think. It's just coordinates in a map. But then you will start adding images and audio, so they can take more space. So I guess it depends on the capacity of all your devices. We have some settings. So for example, if I'm part of a project and I don't have much space on my device, I can choose to receive only the points and low quality images so that I can see some of the data, but I, for example, can choose not to receive audio because it weighs more than other types of data. That's why, for example, if you have the desktop version of CoMapeo, it's a good way of doing a full backup of all your project because usually computers have more storage space. But I think that multi-year projects can take maybe, I don't know, 1 gigabyte of data, not that much data. And today's cell phones usually have more capacity to manage that. I hope I answer your question, Lucy.
I'm gonna bring Josue on to speak. Hi, Josue, great to see you. Or know you're here. Please go ahead and answer your. You can ask your question.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much for giving me the space. I'm asking this question because when I see in the communication, I see that the interesting region where Mapeo is already working is Amazon, Eastern Africa, like Kenya, and but the Congo Basin could be also interested on this approach within indigenous community. And we are very, very, very interested as we are from Congo Basin countries. Yeah, I call from DRC. And I don't know how can you think about to organize maybe physical meeting for capacity building with some communities because the virtual meeting is for higher level people with with more experience. But when we are in front of a local community, we need to have a physical one. For example, you already have a partner in Kenya. If they have the capacity to support each other in other region, so they are not far from our region. So it is in that kind of interest that I would like to apply this request to your team to manage how can we extend the Mapeo in the Congo Basin. Yeah, starting with DRC within the indigenous community where we are working with on the forest securitization. Thank you.
Thank you, Josue. We would love to be able to support more work in Central Africa. We have quite a few partners in East Africa. I think one of the issues is we don't know the area. So when we started out, quite a few members of our team already had connections and knew the work in the Amazon, which is why that's kind of where everything started. We are making some more connections now in Central Africa, and we're working with Forest Peoples Programme, who have actually introduced CoMapeo to some communities in Cameroon and I believe the Republic of Congo. And I think we would be, we would really look forward to being able to do something on the ground in Central Africa over sometime in the next year. We haven't got anything on the cards yet, but I know that we will keep in touch with you and others once we're able to make more plans on that. And I'd also just wanted to mention, because I realize there are quite a lot of people from like across the African continent here, that next week we're doing another introductory webinar like this next week, and it will be translated to French and also to Swahili. So if any of you have colleagues who might find the English version inaccessible, please feel free to invite them along next week as well.
I think there's a remaining. Sorry. I think there's a remaining question on the Q&A asked by Anchor. Shall I answer it? Okay. So Anchor asks, can the information only be downloaded in JSON format? It disappeared. Or also be downloaded in CSV format. So regarding that, as is of now, you can only download as GeoJSON. We're still like exploring different ways of exporting data through CoMapeo desktop. It's something that has came up, and we are still trying to figure out the best possible formats and shape of how the data is exported. But we're envisioning a future where CSV is a possible format for exports, and also other rich export formats for creating stuff like reports. But for now, only GeoJSON. Okay.
Philemon wrote a question. No, you can absolutely use the app in West Africa. You can use it anywhere. We just have more examples from, so we've been co-designing the tool with partners in the Amazon and East Africa, Southeast Asia. As Alia said, we have growing partners. Actually, there's a group in Nigeria using CoMapeo right now for monitoring oil spills in the Niger Delta. So really, it's a free and open source tool that can be used anywhere. Mapeo, the earlier version of the tool, was used in over 90 countries. But we wanted to do this webinar to both introduce more people to the tool and also share stories of how it's currently being used. So in the webinar we shared more of the stories of our current use, but it really can be used anywhere. We'd love to, if you have more questions, we're happy to answer them. We're also happy to take, we've got 8 minutes left. We're also happy to take comments, or some of you who may have used the tool could share. So feel free to raise your hand or type another question if you want to share anything more. And then also we can also end when folks need to, so that people get the rest of their day back. But we really appreciate you being here.
Emilia, I'd like just to add to your response about this question. Analia mentioned this in the presentation, but just reminding everyone that when you download CoMapeo, it comes it's fully translated in English, in Spanish, and Portuguese, but it is also, many communities have done great work in translating the app. Now it's also translated to Bahasa, and it is possible to translate it to local languages, besides other customizations like the background maps and the categories in which you can order and manage your information. So you will see, if you download it now or when you have a chance, it comes with a default, in a default version that already works, and it can work anywhere. But if you want to customize it for the needs of your community, there is a process, and we have it also documented, and we also share the email. Maybe we can share that image again. So the idea is to support everyone who is interested in the possibility to customize it and also explore it. So we'll share that, and we'll also share a follow-up email with the recording of this session and these links that I'm mentioning. And yeah, just wanted to add that.
We've had a couple more questions come into the chat. Kiyosi asks, what is the way to officially partner with CoMapeo and also maybe get some funding? So using CoMapeo, as we've said, is completely free and open to anybody. An official partnership, it really depends. So we're a very small team. Basically, the people who work with the communities are people on this call and like one or two others. So our aim isn't to be able to support in person all of the people who want to use CoMapeo. Our aim is to really build robust materials so that people can teach themselves and teach their communities to use CoMapeo. So we would like to explore that, option first with people who want to use it. In terms of funding, we're always happy to talk about possibilities for looking for co-funding for work. Our focus right now really is on the production of good materials and refining CoMapeo. But Kiyosi, feel free to drop us an email if you have tell us more about your use case and your interest, and we can get back to you more specifically on that. And then Soraya asks, what is the spatial resolution of the tracks that Mapeo can monitor? I can answer what I understand by that question. So when you use CoMapeo, the GPS sort of has a certain accuracy when it collects a point or when it collects a track, and it will tell you, the GPS will tell you how accurate the point is and whether it's usually, ideally it would be less than 10 meters of accuracy. So like pretty accurate, but that will depend on the quality of the GPS in your phone. So I think the tracks would be the same as the observations. Hopefully that answered your question. And if there's nothing else, Thomas.
I think there's a question by Jorge Flores. He talks about finding a repository, a code repository on GitHub, which is a code platform for open source projects. And they asked, could this framework allow a third-party React Native, which is a way of doing mobile applications, to interoperate with CoMapeo projects? So that's kind of a tricky question. So CoMapeo is open source, so you can inspect the code, and you can, in theory, create applications that interoperate with CoMapeo. I would say that this is just in theory because we haven't seen that emerge as of now. Like CoMapeo is an app that is 1 year old, and I know that there's some complexities in figuring out how to create an app that interoperates with CoMapeo. In theory, it's possible, but I guess it will need some coordination with us to know some internals in and outs of how things are put together, because it's, despite being open source, it's not that it's set up so that any third party without consulting with us can create an app that interoperates with CoMapeo. For us, I think it will be amazing that someone figures out how to interoperate with CoMapeo, but in reality, I think it's kind of more complex than that. But feel free to send us an email to talk about your ideas, and we can discuss with the tech team, the people that actually develop the app.
Well, I think that's it. We're basically at the hour. We thank you all for joining. Thanks for your great questions and stories and so on. Obviously a range of users, and for those of you who are more technically minded, please do get in touch if you have more specific questions. As Maria said, we're going to send a follow-up with a survey, and one of the questions on that survey is if you would be interested in more webinars, and if so, kind of what level of detail and specificity to go into. So please give us feedback. We really appreciate it. And please also, if you think this might be of interest to others, please also share it. We have a few more webinars coming up that people could join live, and we'll also be putting these videos up on YouTube. So thank you all so much, and we look forward to being in touch. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you for
Bye-bye.
coming.
Thank you.
Bye.